Most people spend years trying to master something and never get anywhere. Not because they're lazy, but because they're learning the wrong way. Real mastery doesn't come from repetition. It comes from intelligent repetition, backed by strategy, awareness, and mental discipline. Machiavelli would tell you, power isn't given, it's built. And the same is true for mastery. If you apply the right method for just 30 days, you'll start doing what most never achieve in a lifetime. No talent required, just the courage to practice differently. This isn't motivation, it's a blueprint for transformation, a system used by the most dangerous minds in history. Simple to apply, ruthless in results. If you're ready to stop wasting time and finally take control of your own growth, this is your moment. Let's begin.
The myth of talent versus the strategy of belief. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they believe they do. That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, silently sabotaging every attempt at growth. Machiavelli would say, "He who underestimates himself hands over power before the battle begins." Mastery begins in the mind, not in skill. And the first battlefield is your internal narrative. The myth of talent is seductive. It comforts mediocrity and excuses inaction. People look at leaders, thinkers, or artists and say they were born for it. That belief strips them of authority over their own story. The truth? Every great figure in history was once unqualified. The difference was how they responded to being unqualified. Power belongs to those who act as if they already possess it. Belief precedes ability, not the other way around. That's the philosophy of influence. When you command your self-image, you begin to command your surroundings. Every act of confidence rewrites the script your subconscious repeats. That's not poetry, it's neurostrategy. Albert Bandura called it self-efficacy. Machiavelli called it fortuna. Both spoke of the same thing, your internal readiness to dominate reality. Without it, you fold under pressure. With it, you become immune to the chaos of failure. This isn't motivational fluff. It's a weapon of psychological warfare you turn inward before turning it outward. If you want to build true authority, start by mastering your inner voice. Practice speaking to yourself like a strategist, not a victim. Replace "I can't" with "What's the next move?" Replace "I'm not ready" with "How do I prepare faster?" Every correction sharpens your dominance. That's how mental autodominio is built. Here's something practical. Write your own manifesto. One page that defines who you're becoming. Read it daily. It's not just a ritual, it's brain training. You're reprogramming your strategy engine. This is how the brain builds loyalty to your chosen identity. Don't underestimate the power of repetition combined with clarity. Respect doesn't come from asking for it. It comes from embodying it. When others feel your presence before your words, you've crossed the threshold into influence. Not because you're louder, but because you're anchored. This is leadership in its rawest form. Quiet, but undeniable. Now that you've dismantled the myth of talent and taken back your mental sovereignty, the next step is even more dangerous, turning belief into a measurable, repeatable practice. Let's enter the domain of deliberate action.
Practice is not progress, the deliberate divide. Repetition doesn't guarantee excellence, it only guarantees permanence. If you repeat mediocrity, you reinforce mediocrity. This is where most people collapse without realizing. They confuse motion with mastery. Machiavelli would laugh at such blindness and whisper, "You cannot conquer what you refuse to examine." You can work 10 years in the same role and still be average. Why? Because time alone does not refine, only reflection does. Strategic development demands you hunt down your weak spots with surgical precision. That's the essence of deliberate practice, not more effort, smarter effort. Every master understands this law of power. You don't rise by chance, but by correction. The violinist doesn't just play scales, he analyzes his finger placement until tone bends to his will. The strategist doesn't just read, he rewrites ideas until they become weapons. Development is not passive, it's violent in the best sense. So, how do you shift from amateur effort to focused domination? You identify what's broken, you isolate it, and then you attack it daily. A boxer doesn't just fight more matches, he trains his weak punch until it becomes lethal. That's autodominio, not over others, but over your inconsistency. Influence isn't built in the spotlight, it's sculpted in repetition, and not just any repetition, targeted discomfort. Create drills that deliberately expose your blind spots. For example, if public speaking paralyzes you, record yourself daily for 30 days and critique every hesitation. That's not suffering, that's strategic evolution. Respect in any field is given to those who visibly sharpen their edge. The world subconsciously gravitates toward those who demonstrate controlled aggression in their craft. That's the invisible era of authority, not given, earned through repeated collision with personal limits. The sad truth is that most people will never reach mastery because they fear the mirror. They avoid feedback. They numb their patterns with fake productivity. But you, if you're listening this far, are not most people. You came for power, not comfort. You came for control, not applause. And now that you've learned to see practice as a weapon, it's time to talk about the next piece of this war machine, your brain's hidden addiction, and how to hack it to your advantage.
Hack your brain's reward system like a strategist. Your brain doesn't care about your goals. It only responds to feedback. Understand that first, and you stop being a puppet. Dopamine, the chemical behind motivation, is released not by achievements, but by perceived progress. That's why most people give up. They set giant goals with no visible rewards. A true strategist breaks this pattern. They design micro-victories to trigger consistent dopamine hits. Learning a language? Don't obsess over fluency. Obsess over speaking 5 sentences today. Want to master sales? Celebrate your first objection, not your first deal. Authority grows in increments. Machiavelli would call this influencing the battlefield. If the enemy is your own neurochemistry, then build traps, not walls. Frame your progress in a way that makes your primitive brain crave continuation. If you wait to feel motivated, you've already lost the war. The real leaders don't chase motivation. They manufacture it. And they do it by breaking ambition into pieces they can visibly conquer. Want to build self-respect? Journal 3 wins per day. Doesn't matter how small, your brain only needs evidence, not scale. Let's get practical. If you're trying to lose weight, don't obsess over 10 kilos. Focus on hitting your macros 3 days in a row. If you're learning video editing, don't wait to finish a full project. Edit 10 seconds and post it. Reward the micro-execution. That's how influence over self begins. Autodominio starts when you stop outsourcing motivation to chance. You become the dealer of your own dopamine. It's not magic, it's mechanics. That's why strategy is spiritual. You're not just hacking your biology, you're reclaiming your authority over it. People respect those who move with energy, not excuses. And most of that energy comes from seeing themselves win, even on a tiny scale. If you can make your brain associate learning with pleasure, you can manipulate it into obsession. Yes, we're talking Machiavelli-level influence turned inward.
The 24-hour rule. Move or lose. There's a brutal law of learning. If you don't apply new knowledge within 24 hours, it begins to evaporate. You might feel smarter, but you're just getting better at collecting theory. The masters, they move immediately. Execution creates memory. Delay destroys it. Machiavellian strategy isn't about gathering ideas, it's about turning them into leverage. Read a book on negotiation, try one line from it the same day. Studied a workout routine, do the first set tonight. Leaders don't wait until they're ready, they test when it's raw. Why does this work? Because application burns the lesson into your nervous system. The brain doesn't respect what it hears, only what it feels. A mistake made in action teaches more than 10 perfect ideas consumed passively. Feedback is your secret mentor. Want real influence? Build the habit of instant implementation. Every time you hesitate, you're telling your brain this knowledge wasn't valuable. And guess what? It won't store it. But if you act, even clumsily, your brain flags it as urgent and locks it in. Let's make this real. If you learned a new productivity technique, test it during your next task. Don't wait for the perfect project. If you studied emotional control, use it during your next argument or stress trigger. The battlefield doesn't give you notice. Be ready anyway. Masters dominate because they act with urgency. They don't try to be flawless, they try to get closer to feedback faster than everyone else. That's the secret. Fail forward, document, adjust. Influence isn't earned in silence, it's carved through public errors and private reflection. This isn't about speed, it's about rhythm. The 24-hour rule is a strategy of self-respect. You honor your time, your knowledge, and your future by not letting ideas rot unused. Authority is built in action, not perfection. Can you see how that flips the whole game? But here's where it gets dangerous. People apply, fail, and then forget. They miss the final and most overlooked pillar of mastery. We fix that next.
Document the pain. Turn every mistake into power. Most people hide their failures. Masters harvest them. Every mistake is a message. Every wrong turn is a secret map, if you document it. This is where most stop, but it's exactly where Machiavellian wisdom begins. Turn your pain into precision. Journaling your errors isn't weakness, it's war strategy. Missed a key point in a meeting? Write it down. Got nervous during a pitch? Record what triggered it. Each note becomes ammunition. Over time, you stop repeating and start refining. You're building your manual of self-dominance. This is no ordinary notebook. This is your black book of tactical refinement. In the margins, you'll see your rise. What felt like shame becomes a source of power. The weak hide, the wise analyze. Let's make this tactical. Use your phone or a physical journal. Label your entries. What I tried, what went wrong, what I'll try next. This turns every day into a lab experiment. After 30 days, you'll have the blueprint most spend years trying to guess. Why is this powerful? Because the brain forgets what it avoids. But when you document discomfort, you confront it. That's where influence begins, not by pretending you're untouchable, but by proving you can adapt faster than anyone else. This is how leaders are forged, through constant recalibration, not perfection, but responsiveness. Most people build sandcastles of pride. You're building a fortress of strategic humility. That's the kind of authority that doesn't flinch. Machiavelli would say, "He who knows his weaknesses better than his enemies wins before the war begins." When you write down your patterns, you reveal the invisible strings pulling your life, and the one who sees the strings controls the puppet. But even with this weapon in hand, many fail to evolve. Why? Because they face a silent beast, one that paralyzes even the most disciplined, and you'll need it sooner than you think.
Face the plateau, the illusion of no progress. Every path to mastery hits the wall. No clicks, no progress, just flat terrain. That's the plateau, where most turn back, believing the fire's gone. But this stillness, it's not death. It's the signal that transformation is loading beneath the surface. The plateau isn't the enemy, it's the rite of passage. A Machiavellian mind doesn't flee boredom, it weaponizes it. Real growth doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It hides in repetition, in doing the same stroke 1,000 times until it becomes instinct. This phase separates the amateur from the sovereign. Here, discipline outweighs motivation. You're not seeking thrills anymore. You're crafting reflexes. You're building authority over yourself, even when there's no applause. Let's be real. The plateau feels like failure. But here's the twist. Every master you admire lived in that silence longer than you think. Jordan, Da Vinci, Seneca, all had seasons where nothing moved. But that was the forge, the silence before the roar. You want to beat this stage. Don't escape it. Track it. Document your boredom. Measure what feels stagnant. Then rotate your focus. Shift your drills. Add a micro-challenge. Gamify the dull. Make your brain chase new dopamine without losing your core routine. Imagine a boxer throwing the same jab for weeks. It feels pointless until one day, boom, it lands in a real fight with flawless timing. That's the plateau paying off. Hidden power always needs time to mature in the dark. Machiavelli would whisper, "Never judge a man's strength in motion. Judge it in his stillness." This is where self-respect is earned, when no one's watching, when the only audience is your own future, and that's who you're performing for. But don't relax yet. There's another twist. Because even after surviving the plateau, a different question rises from within, one that challenges the very way you pursue excellence.
Stack skills, the power of unique combinations. Mastery isn't always about being the best in one thing. Sometimes it's about being dangerously good in 3. When you combine skills, you build leverage, a signature that no one else can copy. That's not luck, that's strategy, pure and simple. Machiavelli would say, "Don't chase perfection, chase the edge." And edges are formed where unlikely talents intersect. You don't need to be the top chef or the best public speaker. But if you can cook, speak, and sell, you become rare. And rarity breeds influence. This is where development personal meets creativity. Think like an architect. Identify 3 to 4 skills that connect, even loosely. Design them into a personal arsenal. The overlap is where your power starts to look like genius. Take this real example.
Someone who writes well, understands psychology, and knows video editing. Alone, none of these dominate. But together, you've got a content creator with psychological hooks and elite delivery. That's how leaders emerge. Ask yourself, what are your current average skills? Not impressive on their own, but when stacked, they might create something elite. Think coding and storytelling, or finance and design. When authority comes from overlap, nobody can copy your formula. Want a place to start? Choose one skill you've always wanted, but never took seriously. Now find two that could multiply its impact. Study them with precision, not perfection. The goal is to unlock synergy, not mastery. Yet, this creates a brand of you, a strategic version, someone who doesn't rely on talent, but on positioning. Machiavelli would nod. Don't be the strongest in the room. Be the most unpredictable. Now imagine the doors this opens. But here's the thing. None of this matters if you can't keep it going consistently, especially when life throws chaos your way.
Consistency over chaos. The master's daily discipline. Consistency isn't sexy. It doesn't impress at first glance. But behind every story of power and influence, there's a boring, repetitive system no one sees. That's where real dominio de si begins. When life turns chaotic, the master remains grounded. Forget the myth of motivation. You won't feel like it most days. The trick? Create systems so small they're impossible to ignore. 20 minutes of focused practice daily beats hours of distracted hustle. Philosophia isn't just thought, it's repetition. Think about it like brushing your teeth. You don't need to be inspired to do it. You just do. That's the mindset you want for skill building. Short sessions every day without overthinking. The autodominio is in the ritual, not the results. Even when everything else is unstable, emotions, finances, relationships, your habit becomes a sanctuary. And that's how authority is forged. Not when it's easy, but when it's brutal. The person who shows up under stress becomes unforgettable. So how do you design this consistency? Keep it stupid simple. Learn one concept, apply it, write what worked, repeat. Missed a day? Don't punish yourself, just pick it up again. Progress isn't lost, it's parked. Use reminders, visual triggers, and a short feedback loop. Reward the process, not the result. Treat every win like a step in desenvolvimento emocional. Some days you'll barely move, others you'll leap, but you'll always grow if you don't quit. Those who lack structure depend on luck. Masters build habits so strong that skipping feels uncomfortable. It's not about talent, it's about creating a rhythm that makes excellence automatic. This is how strategy beats force. Still, even with consistency, there's one more silent enemy every learner must face. And if you don't recognize it in time, it'll make you question everything you've built. Breaking through the plateau, where most give up. Every path to mastery hits a wall. That wall is called the plateau, where progress seems to vanish. You feel stuck. You start questioning your worth.
But here's the hidden truth. The plateau isn't punishment, it's preparation. This is where the crowd turns back. They believe they've reached their limit, but the leader knows this is just the threshold. Real transformation happens after the flat line. It's the test before the leap. And the mind must be stronger than the emotion. When the rush fades and dopamine drops, your true autodominio kicks in. That's when you either fall into distraction or sharpen your focus. The choice defines your power. Stay and the reward multiplies. Quit and the cycle restarts. You have to make the plateau your training ground. Start experimenting. Change your inputs. Shift your method. Micro-adjustments turn boredom into brilliance. This is the domain where Machiavelli would smile. It's where pain refines purpose. Want to push through? Set a bizarre new challenge. Speak about what you've learned. Teach it. Revisit your documentation. Find patterns. Make it a game of refinement. That's how influence is built, by staying longer in the fire than anyone else. Most people flee from discomfort. Masters sit in it. They study it. They squeeze wisdom out of every failure. They don't fear the slowdown. They dissect it. This is what separates noise from legacy, philosophy from noise. Think of the plateau like a dark forest. You won't see light at first, but if you keep walking with awareness, your eyes adjust. You begin to see opportunities you couldn't notice when blinded by progress. You earn a new kind of vision, one built from stillness. But once you've endured this phase, something unexpected happens. You begin to see the hidden power of combining skills, a secret that multiplies everything you've learned so far.
The power of combining skills, becoming unstoppable. What if I told you that being the best at one thing is no longer the smartest strategy? In today's world, true power lies in combining 3 or 4 good skills into a rare mix. You don't need to be a genius, you just need to be intentional. Machiavelli would call this the art of stacking advantages. Instead of obsessing over perfection, focus on strategic overlap. Know a little design, some psychology and communication? You've just unlocked a form of invisible authority. The secret is to stop chasing status and start building synergy. Imagine someone who's decent at storytelling, understands human behavior, and knows how to edit videos. That person becomes a magnet of influence without needing to be world-class in any area. Start small. Choose 3 areas that excite you and feed your development: emotional, personal, and intellectual. Let them connect naturally. Don't force mastery. Let the dominio de si lead. The key is depth in combination, not isolation. This creates something rare: irreplicability. When your blend of skills becomes too unique to copy, you earn respect and positioning without chasing trends. Think of it like a signature that only you can write. That's not ego, that's smart strategy. Example: you're not the best writer, but you write with feeling. You're not a tech expert, but you understand trends. Combine that with a calm voice and storytelling. Boom! You become the voice of a generation. Others will wonder how you did it. Let them. This is where philosophy meets practicality. It's not just about doing more, it's about doing wisely, about applying your strengths like puzzle pieces that form a bigger picture of leadership and mastery. You design your own unfair advantage. And once you realize the true strength lies not in talent, but in how you combine and apply what you've learned, something else becomes clear. There's one more element that separates the amateurs from the legends.
If you've made it this far, it's because something in you refuses to live a life of mediocrity. You're not looking for shortcuts, you're looking for truth. And now you have it. The truth about how power, strategy, and daily action can transform your life. You've learned how to train your mind like a weapon, how to use failure as feedback, how to gain respect not by shouting, but by leading through quiet consistency. These are not theories, they are time-tested teachings used by great minds throughout history. Now ask yourself, what will you master next? Will you keep waiting for the perfect moment, or will you apply what you now know today? What skill are you ready to build from zero and combine into something powerful? Tell me in the comments. This is your opportunity to prove that auto-dominion isn't a myth, that influence isn't reserved for the few, but built by the consistent. Don't just be a spectator, be a strategist of your own story. Your next chapter begins with one bold action. So if this message sparked something in you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Turn on the bell so you never miss another insight. And now, don't leave yet. Watch the next video on your screen. It's your next step toward total mastery.